What is going on YouTube? A fascinating graveyard. Today, we're at the Butler Creek Cemetery here in Sulphur Springs, Arkansas. And today we're gonna visit the grave of Tommy Morrison, a very talented boxer, tremendously talented, who had a very tragic ending to his career and ultimately to his life as well. One of the most underwhelming boxers of all time, in my personal opinion. He could have easily have been one of the top at least 20 heavyweights of all time. But a series of bad decisions, his loose life with women, his drug use, and ultimately, some would even say him starring in the movie Rocky V would lead to his career waning and taking a turn for the worse. So without further ado, let's get right into the story. Before we begin the video, as with many of my videos that occur on the outside, we're gonna possibly have some technical difficulties. You got a couple of dogs over there that are not being kept very corralled in their property. They could easily jump that fence and attack me. One of them looks like to be a pit bull, but don't worry, I do have some treats to fend them off. If that doesn't work, I have something else that will fend them off. Let's hope we don't have to go that route. Anyways, so we're gonna talk about a man who I used to watch fight as a kid. I used to be a pretty big boxing fan. I still am, but just boxing hasn't been really exciting to me since about I want to say it was since the Klitschko brothers retired. Even though their style of fighting is boring, I still enjoyed Vladimir and Vitali fighting for whatever belts, championships that they fought for. I think the last solid heavyweight right now, probably Tyson Fury. I'm not gonna lie, that guy's a beast. If I could make any matchup with him, with any boxer that has ever lived, I would love to see him go against Lennox Lewis. So let's get into the story of Tommy Morrison. So Tommy was born in Gravette, Arkansas, 5 miles right down that highway on January 2nd, 1969. And he was a big kid that liked to fight growing up in Arkansas down there. Of course, when you're a kid and, you know, you ain't got nothing much better to do in small towns except, you know, fight and, you know, the other word that a lot of people like to say, but I won't say on this channel. So reportedly, his mother, this is hilarious, his mother, seeing that her son liked to fight and was a good fighter, she said that when he was 13 years old, this guy was so big at the age of 13 that she had signed him up for a tough man competition. Now, you had to be 21 to, you know, fight in those tough man competitions. So she made him a fake ID and entered him in those contests. And supposedly, at 13 years old, he only lost one fight of all those tough man competitions. Later, getting a little bit older, he went up to Kansas City. He won the Kansas City Golden Gloves championship or trophy, whatever you want to call it. And he would also go on to win a national Golden Gloves title. So what do you do after you competed in the Golden Gloves, you know, titles or championships or what have you? Well, the Olympics is starting to look good. And he made his way through the quarterfinals, the semifinals, later on going down to Texas. He fought a man, some of you might know the name, Ray Mercer, a legendary heavyweight in his own, you know, in his own right. So he ended up fighting him in the finals to be given the chance to compete in the Olympics, and that is where he lost to Ray Mercer. Hey, but then again, you know, to lose to Ray Mercer, you know, that's a great boxer right there. That guy was an absolute beast. So anyways, after that, Tommy Morrison decided to turn a professional. And his first, you know, it's pretty much like with any boxer. You kind of pad your stats. So you're not going to be, you know, 5-0 and you're fighting, you know, heavyweight champions, you know, So he's working his way up through the division. He's starting to make some noise. Number one, this guy is very good looking. This guy looks like an Adonis. This guy has a phenomenal body. This guy has the size. He's like 6'2", good looking, young. This guy has a left hook that would put 99.99999% of all men down right on the flats of their back. So he gets to the record of about 19-0, and he's getting kind of popular. Oh, also, hey, let's just call it the way it is. He's getting popular because he's white. And ever since Rocky Marciano, which I don't know if you would consider him white, I think he's Italian. But, there's always been, people looking for the next great white hope or great white hype, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it is what it is. An American boxer, if he were white and he were good, he would be immensely popular because people want to root for people that share their nationality, whatever you want to call it. It is what it is, guys. It's human nature. It is what it is. So this guy, I think at the time he's fighting in New York, and I'm not going to lie, I don't know how. Probably should have done a little bit more research. I don't know. But somehow Stallone, who was in the process of filming Rocky V, he was looking for somebody to play the villain of that movie. And I believe somebody had told him, hey, man, there's a guy, might fit the bill, and he's fighting such and such night over in such and such area. So Stallone goes to the fight, which Tommy wins handedly. And, he meets him after the fight and he says, hey, I'm Sylvester Stallone. And Tommy's like, yeah, I know who you are. And he says, hey, listen, hey, should I try to do a Stallone impersonation? Hey, listen, hey, I want you to come over. And, I'm not doing all that. But anyways, so he tells him, he said, hey, I want you to do a reading. I'm filming Rocky V. I'd like you to just kind of read the role, just do some readings. So he meets Stallone the following days later, or what have you, does the reading. And, look, this guy is the perfect villain. He's young, he's big, good looking. Stallone is playing, Rocky, fading champion, one last fight, whatever. So he cast him as Tommy Machine Gun. So at the time, I think Tommy Morrison had about 19 or 20 fights under his belt. So he takes 6 months off, which that's not what you want to do when you're trying to move up in the ranks of the boxing world. Okay, so about this time, Tommy is about 20 years old or so. So he takes the role as Tommy Machine Gun for Rocky V. 6 months off, like I said, you don't want to do that when you're a boxer. You want to keep fighting. You don't ever want to get rusty. You want to be fighting at least every couple of months. So this guy takes off of boxing and films the movie. And after he's done, when that movie comes out, boy, let me tell you, that man is the man wherever he goes. He's already good looking. He's got notoriety. He's got a little bit of money now. You got to imagine when you're that good looking, you're young, that body, you're going to have women coming out of the woodworks trying to get a piece of that Morrison. And, like any red-blooded man, you got women out there saying hi. Well, of course you're going to want to say hi back. And some would say because of that movie, he didn't reach the levels of famedom and stardom that boxing would have allowed him, just because of those few 6 months of him being away from boxing. Just not only was not good for him, but it, in a way, derailed his boxing career. So after the movie comes out, his next 4 fights go as planned. He wins them all. One of the fights that he fought was a man by the name of James Tillis, who at that time was the only man to go the distance with Mike Tyson. So, that's not nothing to shy away from. Man's a good boxer in his own right. Mike Tyson could have knocked him out, and Tommy Morrison won. So he goes through a couple of more fights, and then now he's setting up a fight with the WBO championship belt against George Foreman. Now, listen, George Foreman, at that time, I think he was in his mid-40s. But, hey, you ever heard of old man strength? No, George Foreman was still, he was heavy, but he was just a big, big guy. George Foreman was a big dude. And so they fight, and, it was the fight between two really heavy-handed punchers. Now, I'll tell it the way it is. If Tommy Morrison would have fought a prime George Foreman would have just annihilated him. But George Foreman's 40. He might have even been 45, but he comes out of retirement, I guess, and for a paycheck. And Tommy Morrison, he looked okay against George Foreman, considering who he was. You know what I mean? Not too bad. So he wins that fight. Now here's where a mistake was made. So now you got a white boxer, the great white hype, whatever you want to call it. And there's a man that's also boxing by the name of Lennox Lewis. So they meet to draw out a contract to fight. So they're set to fight for a $16 million purse. And I believe they decided, I think it was going to be like an even split. So Tommy Morrison would have got about $7.5, $8 million, whatever exactly the amount was. But before he decides to fight Lennox Lewis, because, listen, Lennox Lewis is one of the top 5 greatest heavyweight boxers of all time, in my personal opinion. I know a lot of people out there will probably disagree with me. Hey, whatever it is. So before he decides to do that, he wants to do a tune-up fight, which that was a mistake. Personally, I would have took that money and ran. But he just didn't, he decided to do a tune-up fight. So he fights with a guy by the name of Michael Bent. I'm sure a lot of you guys, you're not boxing fans, you're not going to really know who Michael Bent is. But I will tell you, if you watch the movie Ali with Will Smith, he played Sonny Liston in that movie. And he also served as Will Smith's assistant trainer and boxing sparring partner throughout the duration of that movie. So they fight, and Michael Bent destroys Tommy Morrison. Now, listen, if you want to go watch highlights of that fight, I don't know what Tommy Morrison was on or what he was doing the night previous, but whatever it wasn't training. He looked like a shell of himself. So I think Michael Bent just knocked him around the ring like 3-4 times. It was pretty bad. So after that, okay, so you gotta regroup. You gotta get yourself together. So he fights a few more fights, wins those. So his next fight is against Donovan Razor Ruddock, another top 20 heavyweight for sure. I think the guy's from Jamaica. So he fights Razor Ruddock, and Razor Ruddock is destroying him in the first few rounds. Just, picking him apart. And I don't know where Tommy Morrison got the strength, or he summoned the strength from another world, because that guy just got Ruddock with like this perfect punch. And that punch knocking him down. I don't remember if he knocked him out, but I know he knocked him down on the floor. That was the punch that really saved his career. And when I say saved his career, I mean saved his career in terms of him being able to, make money and get that big payday that he would have got if he fought Lennox Lewis. So after that, he fights Lennox Lewis finally. And the fight kind of goes the way everybody would expect it. Lennox Lewis basically schooled Tommy Morrison and stopped him in the 6th round. That was it. That was it for Tommy Morrison. But at least he got that payday, right? So you fast forward to February the 15th, 1996. Las Vegas, Nevada. He's scheduled to fight Arthur Weathers. And you're doing blood testing, you're doing this, you're doing that. And it looks like the testing determined that Tommy had HIV. He was HIV positive. Now, of course, you're going to do a retest. Second test, positive. Third test, positive. Went to his own doctors, positive. Nevada suspends his boxing license, and immediately he basically retired from the sport of boxing. And he just said, listen, me meeting women, got HIV. But he wanted to do one more fight before he retired. So George Foreman was doing some kind of, I don't know if it was like a boxing exhibit, but George Foreman was fighting in Japan. And so he allowed Tommy Morrison to fight in the undercard in the main event involving George Foreman, where he won that fight. And let me tell you, the sad spiral that Tommy Morrison went down after finding out that he had HIV, boy, let me tell you, it just seemed like after that, he tried to come back a couple times. He had claimed supposedly that he was HIV negative, that he was somehow cured of HIV. He fought a couple times here and there. Like, I think he fought once in Mexico. One of these states, I think Oklahoma allowed him to fight. And he did want to win his fights, but he was fighting bums. And ever since he found out that he had HIV, it almost seemed like, party like a rock star, excess booze, excess drugs, excess arrest. He was arrested out in Iowa for punching out a person at a bar who he said, quote, was looking at me. Several DUI arrests that resulted in a prison sentence of 2 or 3 years that he did. Man, I can't think of a more tragic fall from grace in the sport of boxing, much less maybe all of sports, than Tommy Morrison. And this guy was just constantly getting into trouble with the law. He's tried several times to come back from the HIV diagnosis. And, I don't know if he was faking the HIV negative test. I have no idea. Just several arrests, going to prison. I mean, you talk about a fall from grace. Just a very, very sad and tragic story, to say the least. I mean, I loved Tommy Morrison when he was fighting. This guy was a beast, Maybe he wouldn't have made heavyweight champion of the world, but you live that kind of lifestyle where you're doing a lot of drugs, you're meeting a lot of women, and just ultimately a sad and tragic tale. I think those dogs would agree if they could speak. Enough about that. Well, so we're gonna walk by the grave of Tommy Morrison. Try not to get my shadow in it. And man, boy, this cemetery is pretty small. And boy, I was surprised of how small his grave is. That's Tommy Morrison. Tommy Duke Morrison. He died September 1st, 2013. He died of AIDS. He died at a hospital in Nebraska. I think he was 44 years old. And buried on the other side are his parents, or his dad. I believe his mom is still alive. That's Tim Morrison Sr. and Diana Morrison. And that's his sister, Tanya Morrison. Somebody wrote on the Mama, me and sis love you very much and miss you like crazy. We know you're with Jesus. Mom, reveal yourself always to us. Happy birthday. Oh boy. Mother of Dustin and Brianna. Chin up. Yeah. Sometimes I find it amazing that these people were like multimillionaires and they lived this, great lifestyle, and just drugs gets into the mix of it. And like I said earlier, that movie Rocky, a lot of people say from him doing that movie and him getting so popular and him not being able to be disciplined when it came to women and this and that, I don't know. But listen, that win against Razor Ruddock, that was legit. That was legit. And George Foreman, he's an older guy, but he still beat him. So yeah, just Just could have been a great boxer. Was a very, very good boxer, talented boxer, a physical specimen. But the diabolical grip of drugs totally derailed his his career and his life, unfortunately. I come at this grave with nothing but respect. I've watched probably at least 15 of his fights over the years on YouTube that I would watch. So rest in peace to Tommy Morrison. God, I wish I could have seen this. I wish he were alive fighting today, man. I would love to see this guy fight today. All right, rest in peace to the Morrison family. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Big shout out to those dogs who kind of piped down as I was getting a little sentimental. So thank you, doggies. I got the treats right here if you need them. All right, guys, I'm out on the road. Where I go next, nobody knows. Famous graves, infamous graves. Graves of people that did something dumb to end up there. Sometimes dogs' graves. Singers' graves, actors' graves. Spooky graves. Execution graves, murder graves, any graves, whatever graves, interesting graves, fascinating graves, fascinating graveyard. I'll catch up with y'all. I was about to say ketchup. I'll catch up with y'all on the next video. Please. I hope to see you there. Hope so anyways. All right, doggy, I'm leaving. All right, guys, gotta go. Peace out.